Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we are completely flipping a very common narrative right on its head. We're going to explore this totally medical idea that spiritual awakening, it really isn't about human willpower, deep intellect, or personal discovery at all. It's actually entirely a product of divine grace. And to really unpack this, we're going to look at the Apostle Peter's hero's journey as our ultimate case study. Okay, let's dive right into this. Just listen to this foundational quote from the Gospel of John, chapter 15. It says, "You did not choose me, but I chose you." Boom. Right there. This direct statement immediately disrupts our whole modern assumption that faith begins with a human making some sort of smart, insightful choice. It's telling us that the initiative, it always starts from the other side.
So there's a really stark contrast at play here. The common, everyday view kind of dictates that discipleship relies heavily on my choice, my intellect, and my personal insight, right? It's super human-centric. But the biblical truth argues the exact opposite, that discipleship is fundamentally an act of God calling the completely ignorant. It's not humanity scaling a mountain to discover the divine. It's literally the divine reaching down to us. This brings us to Section 1, Revelation, Beyond Human Insight. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're talking about. Let's just look at the broader cast of disciples in the Gospel of John. Spiritual blindness was actually the initial state for absolutely everyone. Even the most legendary figures started out completely in the dark. John the Baptist flat out admitted, "I did not know him," and he only recognized Jesus when he saw the Spirit descending. Andrew started with a totally mundane question, "Where are you staying?" before he eventually realized he'd found the Messiah. And Nathanael, he literally scoffed. Can anything good come from Nazareth? Every single one of them required direct, divine intervention to recognize who was standing right in front of them. And all of this culminates in this incredibly powerful verse from Matthew 16. "Flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father in heaven." According to the text, the core commonality among all these early followers is that their profound understanding didn't come from their own human intellect or, rigorous study. Their realization was entirely a product of divine revelation from heaven, not a single spark of human insight.
Let's move on to Section 2, Peter, the ultimate case study.
Now, what's really interesting here is how we watch Peter go from this fragile piece of clay to a foundational rock. And there's this profound linguistic metaphor embedded right into his name. When Jesus first meets him, he is Simon, a name associated with a fragile, easily broken pebble. But Jesus immediately gives him the name Cephas, or Peter, which means a solid foundation rock. And the dramatic irony here, this famous, legendary disciple brought absolutely nothing, like not even a single word, to his very first meeting with Jesus. Let's see how this builds step by step. Step 1 in John chapter 1 is that first meeting. Peter is just completely silent, yet Jesus goes ahead and makes a profound future promise about who he will become. Step 2 is a span of 3 long years of observation, learning, and frankly, a lot of blunders on Peter's part. Then step 3 brings us to Matthew 16. After 3 whole years, Peter finally speaks up with divine clarity, identifying Jesus as the Son of God. And step 4, that's the fulfillment, where Jesus confirms that initial promise. And check out this fascinating grammatical shift that emphasizes this exact mechanic of grace. Back in John 1, Jesus makes a future promise to an ignorant, silent man. "You will be called Cephas." It's entirely in the future tense. But fast forward 3 years to Matthew 16, and we see the present fulfillment. "You are Peter." Peter's transformation didn't happen because he worked super hard to figure it all out. It happened because Jesus faithfully fulfilled the promise he made 3 years prior.
Which leads us into Section 3, Living Stones, the echo for today.
Now, this isn't just some ancient history lesson. This connects directly to us today. We are viewed as living stones built on this exact same foundational mechanic of grace. Think of a person initially as just a simple stone lying in the dust, shattered, weak, and small. Then a promise is made in grace for eyes that could not initially see. The Father's revelation turns that darkness into light, and these broken stones are repurposed. They're built together as living stones to create this massive monument to mercy.
So the crucial point really just comes down to 0. A fragile pebble brings absolutely 0 effort, 0 insight, and 0 natural wisdom into its own transformation into a rock. Grace literally does 100% of the heavy lifting. The calling, the revelation, the entire transformation, it's all entirely a gift.
Which leaves us with a really fascinating paradigm shift to consider. If the church is built entirely on fragile pebbles that are transformed solely by grace, how does that counterintuitive truth completely reframe our perspective on our personal flaws and self-worth today? I mean, if you don't have to bring the wisdom, but just receive the promise, it kind of changes everything about your journey, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next explainer.